Hello there, good evening and a warm welcome to the news live on Rupavahini ChannelEye. I'm Sharon Masquinius.
A very good evening to you. I am Dishan Virakone and we start off by taking a look at your headlines for tonight. Distribution of the 5,000 rupee allowance for the persons deprived of income during the travel restrictions imposed period from tomorrow. The government says the Sinopharm vaccines were acquired at a lower rate under the existing market conditions. The monthly allowance of preschool teachers increased up to 2,500 rupees. Permission granted to import and distribute organic fertilizer under the recommendations of the Research Institute relevant to crops.
On to the stories in detail now, starting off with local news. The distribution of 5,000 rupees worth allowance for the income-deprived persons during travel restrictions imported period will commence tomorrow. Accordingly, State Minister Shehan Semasinghe said that provisions worth 30 billion rupees have been allocated in this regard. The allowance will be given for low-income earning families registered as eligible to receive the Samurdhi allowance. Families deprived of daily income due to travel restrictions have also been selected for this program. The allowance will be granted for the families comprising of recipient of elders, disabled persons and kidney patients' allowances. Also, a decision has been reached to provide the allowance for families selected based on appeals. According to the circular issued by the Prime Minister's Secretary Gamini Senarath, the 5,000 rupee allowance will be provided for religious establishments, elders' homes, children's homes and homes for disabled persons selected based on recommendations of rural committees. Each unit will comprise of 4 residents of these establishments and such unit is entitled for 5,000 rupee allowance. A new application has been introduced for the families which have not been identified in the previous occasion but qualified for the 5,000 rupee allowance. This application should be filled and submitted to a member of the Rural Committee. Accordingly, with the approval of the Divisional Secretary based on the recommendation of the committee, this family will be considered as a suitable family to receive the allowance. The government reached a decision to distribute the 5,000 rupee allowance for the low-income earning families and income of deprived families in both the curfew-imposed periods in the country following the first wave of the outbreak. Under the first phase, 5 million families received the allowance at a cost of 25 billion rupees. Under the second phase, 5 million families received the allowance at a cost of 25 billion rupees. The government decided to provide the 5,000 rupee allowance for the low-income earning families in the month of April this year. Accordingly, 3 million families received the allowance at a cost of 15 billion rupees. The government has spent more than 65 billion rupees during these 3 occasions.
In the meantime, State Minister Professor Channa Jayasumana says that the country recorded its highest number of vaccinations rolled out in a single day since the beginning of the inoculation process under the COVID-19 immunization program. The vaccination is being carried out successfully in 9 districts. Now, the inoculation process in the country was initiated on January 29th. Subsequently, the vaccination for the people from outside the Western province was initiated on May 26th with inoculation campaigns in the Kurunegala district. Accordingly, the vaccination began for the people in Galle and Mathur regions on May 27th and the vaccination for Jaffna, Ratnapura and Kandy districts were commenced on May 30th. The second dose of the Covishield vaccine was administered to 1,521 persons yesterday. The first dose of the Sinopharm vaccine was administered to 72,887 persons. 10,157 persons received the first dose of the Sputnik V vaccine yesterday. Accordingly, the number of persons who received the COVID immunization vaccines was recorded at 84,565 yesterday. State Minister Channa Jayasumana said that the government has the belief that the country will receive a large number of vaccines from this month onwards. He said that the Sinopharm company has assured the government that 2 million doses of vaccine will be supplied within this month out of the vaccine doses ordered by the State Pharmaceutical Corporation. He also said that measures have been taken to import many other vaccines, including Sputnik V, in the near future. Therefore, he has requested the public not to be deceived by false reports and assured that the public will receive the vaccine free of charge through the government.
ඉහළ එන්නත් ප්‍රමාණයක් අපේ රටට ගෙන්නා ගන්න පුළුවන් වෙයි කියලා. ඒක නිසා අපි මේ රටේ ජනතාවගෙන් ඉල්ලා සිටිනවා කලබල වෙන්න එපා, ව්‍යාජ ප්‍රචාර වලට අහු වෙන්න එපා. ඔබට හිමි එන්නත අනිවාර්යයෙන්ම රජය නොමිලේ ලබා දෙන්න කටයුතු කරනවා. කිසිදු අවස්ථාවක කිසිම කෙනෙක්ට සත පහක හෝ මුදලක් එන්නත ලබා ගැනීම සඳහා දෙන්න එපා, රැවටෙන්න එපා. රජය සම්පූර්ණයෙන්ම නොමිලේ තමයි ඔබට මේ එන්නත ලබා දෙන්නේ.
2,041,307 have received the doses of vaccines under the COVID-19 immunization program thus far. The first dose of the Covishield vaccine has been administered to 25,242 persons. The second dose of the Covishield vaccine has been administered to a total of 340,310 persons. The first dose of the Sinopharm vaccine has been administered to 739,499 persons thus far. The second dose of the Sinopharm vaccine has been administered to 2,435 persons. A total of 26,821 persons have received the first dose of the Sputnik V vaccine. A discussion was held on the legal framework related to the COVID-19 vaccination and the manufacturing of vaccines in Sri Lanka at the Ministry of Justice today. The discussion was held with the participation of Minister Ali Sabri and State Minister Professor Channa Jayasumana. It was emphasized at the meeting that the best solution to prevent and eradicate the prevailing outbreak in the country is vaccination. A high demand exists in the world for vaccines. Discussions were held on the suitability to manufacture the vaccines domestically, considering the increasing prices on a daily basis. It was also emphasized that a considerable amount of funds can be saved from this initiative. Discussions were also carried out on the importance to expedite the inoculation process in the country. The potential to produce 6 million vaccines in the month of August and 7 million vaccines in the month of September through domestic vaccine manufacturing was also shared during the meeting. Lengthy discussions were carried out on the preparation of required legal requirements for the manufacturing of vaccines in the country.
The government says that the China-manufactured Sinopharm vaccines were acquired at a low rate in the global market. It was noted during a media briefing held today to announce the cabinet decisions that the government of China has dismissed the reports which have claimed that Sri Lanka had acquired the vaccines at a higher price rate than Bangladesh. Minister Kelly Rupavahini said that the price rates of the vaccine varying from 18 to 40 US dollars. He said that the price rates differ in accordance to the negotiations conducted with the producer. He added that the World Bank facilitated necessary provisions for many requirements of the country. He added that the negotiations have been carried out on the procurement system. The minister further said that if the procurement process has been carried out in an appropriate manner, then the price rates will be decided within the procurement process. He then said that many countries have acquired the vaccines at a rate of 25 US dollars. Minister Udaya said that the government of China in a tweet had dismissed the reports that Bangladesh had acquired the vaccine at a rate of 10 US dollars. He added that some countries have acquired the vaccine at a rate of 36 to 40 US dollars. However, he said that Sri Lanka was able to acquire the vaccine at a low rate considering the existing market conditions. Minister Kelly Rupavahini said that every country in the world continues to act in a competitive manner under the prevailing circumstances. Accordingly, he said that under such situation, a country should make attempts to obtain at least the first dose of the vaccine. He said that the existing program in the country has been initiated based on the instructions of the medical experts. The Cabinet of Ministers has granted approval to increase the monthly allowance of 250 rupees paid for preschool teachers up to 2,500 rupees. Accordingly, the revised allowance is expected to be distributed among 25,000 preschool teachers under the first phase of the initiative.
Now, the police say that a total of 1,407 persons were taken into custody for violating health guidelines in the last 24 hours. Accordingly, this is the highest number of arrests made for violating quarantine regulations in a single day in the country. The police have apprehended 6 other suspects related to the birthday party held at a 5-star hotel in Colombo recently. The police have further said that the arrested suspects will be produced before the Colombo Fort Magistrate. 5 persons have been taken into custody along with a vehicle for holding a party in the Arasadi area in Jaffna yesterday. The arrested persons have been remanded till June 7th. Meanwhile, search operations were conducted in many parts of the country today. The police have said that a special monitoring operation was conducted on the vehicles which entered Colombo city. Steps were taken to seal all liquor shops in the country until June 7th. The Excise Department has indicated that the enforced measure will remain effective within the travel restrictions. All airports in the country were open for passengers from today. Accordingly, a flight carrying 116 sailors arrived at the Mathal Rajapaksa International Airport this morning. Also, 102 foreign sailors who had arrived in the country left to Qatar in the same flight. 1,989 COVID-19 patients were detected in the country today. Meanwhile, 1,631 patients left the hospitals today following recovery. Accordingly, the total recoveries in the country has increased up to a total of 153,371. 33,498 COVID-19 patients are still receiving treatment in hospitals. 4 COVID-19 deaths were reported yesterday. In addition, 39 COVID-19 related deaths have occurred between the period from May 22nd and 30th. Accordingly, the total number of COVID deaths has increased up to 1,484. Meanwhile, representatives of the Huawei company made a donation worth 2 million rupees to the Itukama COVID-19 Healthcare and Social Security Fund. The relevant donation was presented to Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa at the Temple Trees yesterday.
Deputy Director General of Public Health Services Dr. Hemantha Herath urges the public to pay close attention to the COVID-19 symptoms. He further stated that those who are symptomatic of the coronavirus will be treated at respective hospital and patients who are not symptomatic will be treated at intermediate treatment centres.
There has been certain reports saying that the people have become PCR positive several days after releasing from hospitals after getting treated for COVID-19, which they have become positive few weeks or few days earlier. And this can happen basically when a person is detected to have COVID-19 through PCR. That indicates that the samples obtained from the particular person contains genetic material of the virus. So we label them as COVID positive, and those who are symptomatic will be treated at respective hospitals, and those who are not symptomatic will be treated at intermediate care centers or looked after at the intermediate care centers, and they will be released without doing any PCRs after 10 days, and they will be asked to stay at home for another 4 days as a safety measure. And the basis for such guideline is that once a person is detected to have COVID-19 virus, that after 5-6 days later, the virus level will go down and the person will not be infective further, especially if the person is asymptomatic or if the person is not showing any signs and symptoms of the disease. That means his general immunity level is good, and therefore it is very unlikely that this person will be spreading the disease anymore. And after 10 or 15 days, there will be no live viruses in the bodies of such people. However, if you do a PCR later, the PCR can become positive because of the presence of dead virus or viral material or genetic material within the body or within the samples that we are taking. So all the measures that we need to take for a COVID positive patient will need to be applied to a person of this nature who is not a COVID positive patient, and therefore all activities will get complicated. So therefore we would like to request, especially the employers of people, not to insist on this pre-duty reporting PCR, which is sometimes they have been asking, because if you become positive after undergoing all the treatment and other measures that need to be controlled the disease in respect of this person will have to be followed once again for these patients if they are not properly identified as previously infected person. So I would urge to the employers especially not to insist on pre-reporting or PCR testing before or prior to reporting back to their workplaces.
Here's more stories here at home. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa instructs Marine Environment Protection Authority to issue an immediate order to tow the Express Pearl container ship into deep seas. The relevant instructions were issued during a meeting held at the Presidential Secretariat this evening. Minister of Ports and Shipping Rohit Gunavarthana revealed all the details, including the vessel's route from the United Arab Emirates on May 9th to the arrival near the port of Colombo on May 19th. Representatives from a number of fields, including shipping and the environment, pointed out the vessel was at risk of sinking. Their suggestion then was to take the vessel to deep seas to minimize possible damage to the marine environment. Accordingly, the President gave instructions to issue an immediate order to tow the vessel into deep seas based on the powers vested with the Chairman of the Marine Environment Protection Authority and based on the technical facts as well as the advice of the Attorney General. The President stated that the decision taken should be based solely on technical facts and not on politics. Ministers Douglas Devananda, Mahinda Amaravira, State Minister Kanchana Vijayasekara, Nalaka Godaheva, Attorney General Sanjay Raj Ratnam, Secretary to the President P.B. Jayasundara, Defence Secretary Retired General Kamal Gunaratne, commanders of the Navy and Air Force and the officials of the Port Authority, Marine Environment Protection Authority, NARA and the other line institutions were also present.
Now, the Cabinet of Ministers has granted approval to present declared imports and exports control regulations to ban the importation of chemical fertilizer, pesticides and herbicides to the Parliament. Accordingly, the relevant decisions will be initiated under the Imports and Exports Control Act No. 1 of 1969. The relevant proposal was tabled by Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa. Cabinet spokesman Minister Keheli Ramukwella made remarks over the proposal at the Cabinet media briefing today. Cabinet spokesman Minister Keheli Ramukwella said that the imported organic fertilizers will be tested and evaluated by all three research institutes in the country to check whether the imported materials are in a favorable condition to be used for the local organic needs in the country. He further said that despite accusation made by several entities, the government decision to introduce these regulations is a long-term and favorable initiative taken for the benefit of the country. He further said that the new regulations under the Imports and Exports Control Act No. 1 of 1969, which will be presented to the Parliament for approval, are expected to minimize and limit the use of pesticides and chemical fertilizers and eventually convert them into organic fertilizer.
අතිශයින්ම බහුලව පාවිච්චි කරන රසායනික පොහොර. ඒ වගේම පරිසරය, වැව්වල ගම්වල හිටපු ජලජීවී සියල්ල විනාශ වෙලා තියෙනවා. ඒ නිසා මේ සම්බන්ධව තීන්දුවක් ගත යුතුයි. මේ තීන්දුව ඉතාමත් අපහසු සහ සංකීර්ණ තීන්දුවක්. මෙයින් මතුවෙන කරුණු ගණනාවක් තිබෙනවා. ඒ වගේම රජයක් හැටියට
The Cabinet of Ministers reached on the relevant decision to ban such imports on April 27th.
ජනප්‍රිය තීන්දුවක් නෙමෙයි මොහොත.
The Cabinet of Ministers also granted approval for the proposal presented by Minister Mahinda Nanda Alutgamage. The proposal consists of appointing a special procurement committee on organic fertilizer and chelated herbal trace and a technical committee specialized for the relevant subject to assist the procurement committee. Another proposal presented through the cabinet paper was on the import required carbonic fertilizer and natural mineral through the government-owned fertilizer company for 500,000 hectares of paddy cultivation on the 2021-2022 Maha season with accordance to the international competitive bidding method and distributing them through the Department of Agrarian Services. The proposal was also consisted of measures taken to import organic fertilizer through the licensed companies that have permission to import fertilizer for 600,000 hectares of other crops adhering to the recommendations of the research institutions of the relevant crops. Furthermore, it also consists of the measures taken to import identified specific fertilizer for non-foodie charming plants, cut flower cultivations and non-soil cultivations through the imported license method adhering to the recommendations of the research institutes of the relevant crops. Meanwhile, a program under the theme Let's Make Our Own Fertilizer centering the Mahaveli H Zone. The program has been jointly initiated by Mahaveli Authority and Lanka Phosphate Company. Accordingly, the required amount of organic fertilizer for the upcoming Maha season will be prepared by them.
The government has requested the fertilizer merchants to issue the concealed chemical fertilizer stocks to the market. The government has indicated that concealing fertilizer stocks would not benefit the merchants as the importation of chemical fertilizer for the year 2021 will not be permitted. Reports have indicated that several fertilizer traders have made attempts to hide chemical fertilizer stocks after the government decided to ban the import and use of chemical fertilizer and pesticides with the aim to build a green economy. The traders make such attempts with the intention to sell chemical fertilizer stocks for a high price rate in the future. However, the government has taken a decision to ban the importation of chemical fertilizer for the year 2021.
Now, Minister Bandula Gunawardena says that there is no shortage of salt in the country. He said that steps have been taken to provide salt through Satosa at a concessionary price rate. Minister Bandula Gunawardena said that the country requires 120,000 metric tons of salt for annual consumption. Accordingly, he said that the salt mines belonging to the state sector have the capacity to supply the required quantity. He said he has received a report which has indicated that the existing quantities are sufficient to supply salt for the next 2 years. He also said that the private sector has the capacity to supply 100,000 metric tons of salt. Accordingly, he said that the government has reached a decision to sell a 50 rupee salt pack at a rate of 35 rupees and a 60 rupee salt pack at a rate of 43 rupees. He said that these salt packs can be purchased from Satosa outlets.
The programs to distribute essential food items with mobile vehicles was conducted successfully today. Satosa has indicated that the distribution of 1,000 rupees worth relief package was also conducted today. The distribution of essential food items for the people in Kaduvilla was carried out today. The program was initiated in Anuradhapura district as well. The program to distribute the 1,000 rupee worth relief package to households was initiated at Kaduvilla Divisional Secretariat Division today. Accordingly, 13 lorries have been deployed to distribute goods in the Colombo district. The distribution of parcel consists of essential food items for the people in Galu Kadavatsatra in the Divisional Secretariat Division was conducted successfully. Meanwhile, Minister Bandula Gunawardena engaged in an observational tour in Colombo Fort today to examine the wholesale trading activities. Those who are trading essential goods through mobile vehicles have been permitted to visit the Colombo Fort Wholesale Trade Centre using a permit issued by the divisional secretaries.
Well, that's a wrap of tonight's Primetime News, and until we meet again next time, do take care and good night.